Hello and welcome to this overview of ZUV Tools features and tools. My name is Zach Easton, I'm the creator, and all right, let's get started. We're going to be going through all of the tools we have and a couple ones that aren't going to show up on here. So let's start actually with those. So if you look at the Blender preferences here that we have going on, and we go to the ZUV Tools by searching, you can see that you have now all of these key maps and then this UVerts auto update. So we're going to talk about some of these things. So first and foremost, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You should have 8 key maps that you can play with. These are just like you would see on the key map layout. You can come in here and you can change any of these by pressing. So just like those, you can go in here and change it, and that'll change it for the key map as well. So you shouldn't, it just should be what you're used to if you've ever done any key maps. Or you can just leave them as is if you like them. Perfect. If you do not see both hides, quickly just turn it off and turn back on, and they should both be there. If they don't, message me, find me on Blender Artist, get to me on Blender Market, Gumroad, whichever one you're looking at, and let me know. So, a couple ones that you won't see on your toolbar, your tools over here, that you do see over here are the shortest path now has been moved to simply just be a key map, by control right mouse clicking, and then hide. We have a new operator called hide, which is it's like the old one but better, and we're going to show the differences between that. So shortest path real quick, just kind of if you have used before, just like it is. Let me move that out of the way. Just like it is in the edit mode on the mesh, if you just right click on one and right click somewhere else down here, we have a thing. So this is actually a really good time to talk about. I have redone how the UV stuff is talked about and explained. And so if something weird happens like this, then go over to redo UVerts, and now you come back over here and you do what you're supposed to do. So control right click, it will do just like we expected. Select, so you can select anything you want. Oh, it only works though, of course, if you do it on the same island, but it'll work along edges of seams. Also, select shortest path now also works in sync mode. So you should be able to. It doesn't work on edges because you end up actually selecting. Looks like there's 6 UVs that you've selected here, but that's just because when you select, it's selecting every UV that it can. So it selects the one down here and the one over here, even though you're selecting only the one up here. So, but as long as you're not selecting a UV that's on a seam, so something in the middle of an island, it'll work just fine. Yeah. Okay. So that is shortest path, sorry. Okay, so let's talk about hide. In Blender, normally when you hide things, it hides every single UV that's attached to a vert. So let me show you. Let me pull this back up. Let me disable both my hide operations. Put that down. Now, so basically we can see what's happening. Because what Blender does is it hides any UV that's attached to the whatever vert is selected. So like with this, if I had this one, we're in mesh sync mode, that's why you see both of them when you do that. If I hide this UV over here will also hide, right? Okay, so let's show you. Let's get out of sync mode. If I had this one, that one disappears. It's really frustrating when you say you have overlapping things and you say, oh gosh, I want to hide all this, and then all of a sudden half your UVs or part of your UVs disappear from the rest of your things. So you can see better now all of a sudden, but you're not able to access this. Because if I come over here and I say I start moving this and I hide it, I realize, crap, I move that. Now this is, I'll have to kind of go back up here, turn that to vertex, and put that back on there, just like that. Though I have a better tool, which we'll talk about in a second, that makes that process faster if you do end up doing something like that. So now let's go ahead and turn back on my hide, and you'll see that hide works much more like you would expect it to. All right, so I know I put that back up. I don't remember where I put this. All right, something like that is where it will go now. All right, so if I hide this one, look, that one stays where it is. If I hide all of these, which if you can see from the sync mode, it should hide multiple edges on other islands. But when I do it my way, it only hides the UVs that you've selected. And it will do it, same thing, if you want to do hide unselected, Shift H, which is the Blender's way to. Now, if you want to hide, if you only want to show what selected, you have to have, it's only going to show you faces. If you want to only show, like, you can't hide everything but just a line of vertices. Blender doesn't have a way of doing that, unfortunately. Ooh, I don't want to say it. Blender doesn't have a way of showing just a single non-faces, basically, inside. So you don't even get this. If you in your mesh, you have, you know, a single line of UVs. You won't be able to see that in UVs in the UV editor. A line of vertices. You won't be able to see the line of vertices in the UV editor. So, all right. So that is hide. So now let's talk about what is this UVerts auto update. So UVerts auto update. If you've used my add-on in the past, this is how I get around and make it easier to do actual UV editing. The Blender does not save UVs. It saves vertices, edges, and faces. And for each one of these, there are these things called loops. And you can kind of basically think of a loop. There's one loop for every face connected to a vertice. So you can see over here, there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this vertice has 7 loops attached to it. Now, that loop, like the loop of this corner right here, sorry, my mouse wasn't visible. The loop of this corner right here, it has an edge. It has an edge and it has a face, which would be this face. And so that's how Blender is kind of made up. And so it saves inside each loop the location of where that loop should be for UV editing. And so that's how UVs are built. So when you technically when you're selecting a UV, let's say this UV vertex, which is where I get UVert from, you're technically selecting not the vertex, but all the the loops that are in there. So if I wanted to, want to use rip here for a second, which is Shift V hotkey, and let's get down to 1. So I can select this. You can't. Blender saves this as the Blender basically only nothing's changed. There isn't a new vertex saved anywhere. It's just now updated this loop to be somewhere else than the rest of the loops attached to this vertex. And that is difficult. UVert, how I do it, comes along and says, oh, it numbers it so that this loop here now has a different index, UVert index than the rest of these. Whereas before, let's merge those back together. Now this all has the same, each one of these loops here has the same UVert index. So anyway, that's how I do it. And so what am I talking about this for? So back over here on the UVerts auto update, this needs to update its indexing every once in a while. If you reunwrap, if you add more vertices, if you rip UVs from other UVs, if you there's a couple things that every once in a while it needs to auto update. Before, if you use my app, this is replacing basically the redo UVert, rerun operator with redo UVerts done. So selecting paths or what else was there? Spreading, all these things, they all had UVerts that you would sometimes have to redo manually. Now it should automatically do it. So this one, but if you find it being slow with my add-on on, you may want to come over here and turn this off. There is still a manual button over here, redo UVerts. And if every once in a while it's not working the way you're expecting. You're pressing spread, or you're trying to select a line, you know, trying to do this guy over here, and it's not doing it, and it's giving you an error or something like that. Come over here and press that. And that's true too, even if you do have ZUV Tools, UVerts auto update on. All right, so that's enough with the preferences. So let's move that out of the way. Okay, so let's start going down the list. So constraint. This is Blender's built-in constraint. When it's off, you can move it outside of the 1x1 grid. You can move it over here. But with it on, it keeps it well within. You can't move anything. You can't move anything outside of the 1x1 grid. You can move it around anywhere inside, but you can't move it outside. That's just something I use all the time, so I've included there. There's also the view stretching. And so if you have something that's really badly stretched, you can move it there. Yeah, so okay, so turn that off. I don't use that as much, but it's nice to have it kind of visible. So you usually have to go up here and find it, or view maybe. I don't even know where it is. Tool, view, something. Huh? I don't know. I don't know where it went. Overlays. That's where it was. Stretching. Turn that on and on. And there's more things you can change area and whatnot in the actual one, but I don't normally touch those. So, all right, let's move on. Turn that off. So we have copy UV and paste UV. This isn't anything complicated, so don't think you're going to be able to get away with doing some fancy shindig. If you want to do a fancy shindig and copy UVs from one mesh to another that they don't have the same amount of UVs or anything like that, I would recommend data transfer, because I think it can do it if they don't have the same amount of UVs. I think so. And it uses how close it is, how close it vert, basically. I think you can mess around with it. This one is basically just copying from one UV map. So I want to copy these UVs to another UV app. So this is another UV app I've set up, and oh yeah, no, those aren't set up. Okay. And so there's another one set up. And let's say I wanted these UVs to still be a square over in this one for whatever reason. So I went over here. Gosh, going back and forth. I've copied the UVs. It copies all the selected ones. Now over here, and I click paste, and you can see here that it took a big chunk right here, and they're all right here, and it put them right in the same place. Ooh, and let's say, or if you just want it in place, it's like, oh, I moved it. I want them to be in the same place. Come back over here, though it probably still saved it from the last time I did it, but we'll show you again. And press paste, and it's still in the same space. Just it's for between UV maps on the same object is the best way to do it. If you think that your UV map should be the same, you could try it, and it may still show it, but be careful. Just be careful with it. All right, so let's reunwrap that one, or let's get going. Save selection. So let's say you're working, you've got a decent, you're trying to get all of this right hand side selected, and you have it, and coming through here, and you got all these. All right, now, and let's say you don't want to, you realize you actually need to do something over here first, right? But you don't want to have to come back and reselect all those, because that's a pain. So you can go save selected, go over here, do what you want to do. Maybe you want to smooth a little bit, whatever, and then you go select saved, and it comes back, and you've reselected all those UVs you saved beforehand. All right, perfect. Minimize stretch. Now this isn't anything I really fancy I did. This is basically just Blender's. Go to UV. Minimize stretch, Control V, that's just this. But it's set to iteration, set to 2000. It just makes it simple. You click it once, Blender kind of goes, it wasn't able to respond for a little bit, and then it just automatically does it at 2000. It's something I use really quickly I use a lot to just kind of get the UVs as I want them. I don't want to wait and view it. I just kind of want it to do its thing. Scale of bounds. This one is one I use a lot because let's say the whole UV is set up, oh, like this other one. It's set up this way. So it's just one big UV island, but I want it to take up as much space. I really don't care about stretching maybe, or maybe I do, it doesn't, but I want it to take up the most space. So I can just do scale of bounds, and it'll do it perfectly all the way up. Now, yes, that does some scaling issues, but sometimes that doesn't matter, especially if everything's procedurally. You're just trying to get the best, least stretch, but also the best coverage of your UV square. Seams from islands, that's just blenders. That's blenders, seams from island. Nothing fancy there. I just made it couple less clicks to get to it. Smooth. All right, now what smooth does is, it does exactly what it says. It smooths it. And I believe, yeah. So what you're gonna need to do is deselect the outside. Don't, or else it will do some funky stuff. But you can do smooth. You can do that. You come over here and change the iterations to, to 50 and just kind of let it wait. You can do it, 200 and just kind of let it wait while it's doing its thing and smoothing it out. This is great. I like it because you see all these UVs that are bunched up here. It will usually spread. It kind of its aim is to make it more uniform, though maybe it didn't do it that time. I said 200. Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, it's gonna do it again. 1 second. There we go. And so if I click smooth again, and so maybe I need to do. Okay, yeah. So I'm minimizing stretch a little bit, like that Control V, and it's seeking to spread things out as well. That's why I had the minimize stretch at 200, because it's a good way of spreading things out and taking up more space. Okay, minimize stretch. I really like that. They've added it, or they deem it the best calculable whatever. It automatically stops. It doesn't run for infinity. So now if you click smooth. Oh, shoot. It's gonna... Yeah, I forgot to deselect the outside. But luckily, undo. Right. Always nice. Alright, and smooth. Yeah, so it seems to even it out a little bit more. That kind of brought it back. Maybe this isn't the best use case for that, but there's a lot of use cases that it is really nice. Especially, this is actually one of the things I used it for in my own workflow is, let's take this. Let's say for some reason you've done something like that. You have this. Ugh, that's so, and then you try to do minimize stretch, and these do not work. If the UVs are overlapping when it does minimize stretch, Blender kind of ignores it. Not really. You can kind of see that it's moving, like you can see, especially when I speed it up like this, that it does do some things, but it's ultimately just messes everything up. So what you can do with smooth, though, smooth doesn't care about overlapping. Okay, and I select all of these and I go smooth, and we do smooth again, and you can see that this is doing something that would have taken a lot longer to do. First of all, by hand, it would be almost impossible by hand. Maybe the proportional editing might have helped some, but so now you can do the minimize stretch thing and have it spread everything out. All right, great. So that's smooth. Rip. So now what rip is? So I didn't realize this until recently, but Blender does have. Actually, it's over here in select. It says select split. Select only entirely selected faces. No, that's not right. No, it is. What it does, it says that's what it does, but really what happens is, turn that off, it splits. So I guess it is doing it. It's selecting, remember we're talking about those loops. So normally here it's moving every single loop attached to each of these these UV vertices, right? That's normally what it does. But select split, what this is doing basically is it's only selecting the loops attached to this face. So if you press Y, now you just have that one. That's really cool. That's a little tip. That's not mine, obviously. But rip is more for if you want to, let's say I wanted to open this up and for some reason I didn't want these all attached, or I didn't want these attached here. So I'm going to select this, go to rip. Actually, I don't like the button. I would recommend doing the hotkey of Shift V because it is based upon which direction your mouse is. So if you press Shift V, now it's selected. It's a little buggy, but now it's selected the loop that is closest to your mouse, and it's going to you can kind of drill down. You can see that what it's going to do every time you press it, it's going to select roughly half of the loops, and so it's going to do whatever half are closest to your thing. So over here though, it selected these because these two loops were these two faces were closest to my mouse. And if I do it again, let's say I want this face only, now I have this one. So sometimes you got to do it multiple times. It's kind of just because, you know, how's Blender supposed to know which ones you want? So you kind of have to drill down a little bit. And if it's odd, it's going to go to the lowest one. So you see here there's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 faces. So it's going to, the first half is 3. And the next one's going to do 1 because half of 3 is 1 1/2. So it's going to go to the lowest instead of the largest. If you don't like that, leave me a comment. All right, so that is rip. Again, I recommend using Shift V for that because it is dependent upon what where your mouse is located. And if you're doing it up here, it's gonna, you know, you may not have wanted this one selected. You may want this one selected. Then you have to kind of orient it and do stuff that's frustrating, you know, like that. All right, okay. So now let's move on to select separated, or select, which is selecting UVs that have separated. It's basically it's anything that is any UV that's on a scene. And this may not be beneficial to you, but I use it for some random stuff every once in a while. And so this will select basically all the UVs. It's kind of a nice, it's actually probably more helpful over here. So there we go. So this one, effectively on this one, it acts as a bounds. It selects the edge of the island on this one. So sometimes that's nice to see, or if you have like every once in a while, I find that Blender has done some weird stuff like this when I've unwrapped, or like it's added in random seams somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird like that. But you know, from this view, it's hard. You can't see that. You can't tell what's going on. You don't know that that's there. You're just working along, and all of a sudden you bake it out, or you know, you've texture painting, and you have this big gap here. You're like, what the heck happened? So this is a good way of checking that. And you can see here, oh, look, what the heck is in the middle here? That is so weird. And so that helps with that. Okay, so let's talk about the circle operator. Circle operator, actually, real quick, let's talk about bound select. So bound select, I showed you before, is similar to select separated. But one thing that bound select does that select separated doesn't have is that it will select the bounds of your selection. And this is really good and handy for circle operator. As you notice here, there are some things that it can't. Like how technically this right here is a bounds, but this face also makes up another, or these 3 vertices, which are the bounds, the edge of what was selected is also a face. So you kind of have to clean up a little bit. But so you do that. Now you have a closed circuit of loops of UVs, and if you go over and click circle, you get a nice circle. Now you do have to do, I'm working on it, but there you do have to kind of readjust maybe a little bit, and it's guessing, you know, so you may want it smaller or bigger. But yeah, so you can create a circle out of any line of UVs. Let's try it again. Bounds select. There we go, and circle. And there you go. Nice even circle. And then you can come in here and smooth that up a little bit. Right? Or if you want to, I should move that guy too. Yep. Whatever. Alright. Moving along. Transfer selection. Have you ever worked so hard on something, selecting and getting things right? Obviously this one's not too hard because I'm not being that finicky about it. Pinicky, a mixture between picky and finicky. Only to find out you are in UV select mode or UV sync mode. Now, and then if you wanted to do it, you had to go get out of it, and then it's like, okay, I'm only selecting these, and you had to invert and then deselect. It's a complicated process, obviously. And if you wanted to go from here to here, there wasn't a way. There wasn't a way for you to save the selection and go over. You basically just had to redo it. So that's where transfer selection comes in. Transfer selection saves your selection and transfers you over to UV sync mode. And what you get here, and you see that this yellow thing, that's just because that's just how it does. That's how it works for now. If you just click somewhere, it automatically updates it. And you notice it automatically did select these random UVs over here. It's going to do that just because that's how UV sync mode works. It's because this one over here is selected. And then if you transfer this back over, transfer selection, you notice that we are not in UV sync mode, but these are kept. And that's just, unfortunately, I have not come up with a way to figure out what UVs you do want and what UVs you don't. So there will be some cleanup you'll have to do. But if it's in the middle of something, it doesn't matter, right? Whereas before, the only way to get this selection over here was to, I have to, come back over here and select those. Now you can easily just go transfer selection. And you click somewhere, doesn't matter. And there you go. All right, moving along. Auto Weld. So this one is fun, I think. So let's say you want to connect this edge. Let's get out of this mode, sync mode. You want to connect this edge right here. Okay, selected the wrong UV there for path, shortest path. There we go. Remember, and that's Control right mouse key or whatever other hotkeys you prefer. And so we did that. Control right click. Select those. Now let's say I want all of these to be connected to their other UV. So one way to do that is Blender. Blender has a great, fantastic option to do that. And it's by pressing V, you will see all the other ones it can connect to for each vert. And it highlights it. It's very nice. It can show you how it can all line up. It's a really great tool. But sometimes it's just, you want to move, let's sometimes, get out of that mode, press escape. Sometimes, let's say you press Y, there we go. Sometimes it's just this. And if I press V, it works well sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work nicely at all. Or you have you'll have like a very small one, right? Especially on the edge, right? If you press V, it could go here, but it's also really trying to do that. And then you have to come over here and do, what is it? You want limit, and then you have to adjust with you're pressing Alt and the wheel adjust to do it, and it's not always the best. And then you get closer, V, and here we go. Limit again, press L, and then I do uproad, and so it does that. And so that's just, it's kind of complicated, right? So that's far away. So now let's say that's where my auto weld comes in. So this one, it doesn't take the whole island. It only takes the UVs that you want, and it's going to move them to. So let's do it. Auto weld. or shortcut E. I prefer the shortcut. I'll press this button for now. So notice what it does is instantly moves every vertex to its neighbor, to the basically the UV that it is connected to, that is not selected, or to its sibling UV. Right. So press E. It moved these to its siblings down here, and these up here to the siblings up here. Right. And you have this big monstrosity. So that doesn't seem great, Zach. So how is this even better? You could, of course, go through here and deselect these top two here and do that, and then come over here and just do it manually. Or I have some built-in stuff. So I press that, and I can press use distance. So first of all, you'll notice that without use distance, this now is all of a sudden attaching to this UV over here. Why is that? Well, this one, why wasn't it doing that before? And it's because of where your 2D cursor is. It's going to find the coordinate of the UV that is closest to the 2D cursor. So that's why it moved it over here, which is great, because then you can say I want it to do these UVs and not these UVs over here. But obviously we don't want this. So that's where it comes use distance. And automatically it didn't move that one. It didn't move it over here or over here because it was not within 0.1 units from this current one. And so that allows me to then quickly just kind of move it over like such. So use distance. Let's try this again. Separate with Y. We make sure that's the closest thing over there. We do E. Use distance. This one is closer, so we can make it smaller. Oh, no, sorry. It did it right. It's just that not all of the vertices are. So way to help use that V, press V, and it'll show you what ones are selected. So I don't want some of these exterior ones, right? Now that'll work. So if I press E, and then I can come through and select all those and deselect those. Oh, deselect those. Move that over here like so. And then we move that to the closest to that one, and it's gonna do that. Same thing with that one. Boom. All right, so that's auto weld. Relax. I use it for people may have a different understanding of what it is in mind, but this is what effectively it's smooth, but it only takes into account the UVs that are selected. So for this one, normally the smooth, it tries to average the location between all the surrounding UVs, right? That's what I would normally do. With relax, well, actually, it shouldn't do anything with relax. Yeah, what relax will do, so like it will try to smooth it between this UV coordinate and this UV coordinate. So relax, and so you're gonna get it. Usually, it's gonna do right in between normally, right? But let's say you had, let's say, curve that out a little bit, and let's say, you know what, I wanted this flatter. All right, what? I wanted this flatter. It's doing something weird. It is doing something weird. Well, it's nothing's perfect. I wanted it flatter. So there we go. So relax will slowly but surely smooth out. And it keeps your endpoints where they are, but it slowly smooths out. And eventually, if you do enough iterations, it will flatten it out like so, right? But let's say, if you just want it smoother, you could do it like that. You do it like that. And then you come in here, deselect bounds, which actually should be an option I don't have yet. Anyway, let's smooth it a little bit. There we go. There you go. And that's an easy way of relaxing a line. It can be interior too, right? Just relax it, kind of makes it a nice smoother curve. That's just easy what it is. It makes it a smoother curve. And it usually, of course, it's going to end up trying to space them evenly as well too. All right, so Reunwrap. Let's move on to Reunwrap. Reunwrap is good for, well, re-unwrapping your islands, individual islands, or kind of whatever. So normally, let's say, you know, you've done some work, right? You've been playing around, dinking around, and you've got some good stuff that you like. But let's say, you know, you've moved this over here, you've rotated this and scaled it the way you want, so on and so forth, right? Well, if you go and let's say you don't like what you're doing over here with this anymore, and you wish it was all together, and you don't want to, you know, press V, or you don't even want to, what in the world? You don't even want to, what's going on? You don't even want to use the auto merge, and it's like that. You just kind of want it to get back to where it was. If you select them and press unwrap, it unwraps everything. Your entire mesh is all the way unwrapped, and you've lost all your work over here. Enter re-unwrap. This is one simple, and what it's going to do is it takes what you've selected and it re-unwraps it. Boom, just like that. Now you'll notice what it's going to do here is it's going to try to get the same place roughly, but it's going to scale it to as roughly the size that your selection is. So imagine a box around this. That's what it's basically going to do. Yeah, so we re-unwrap. It's going to be the size of your selection. So let's move that back down. What is helpful too, so normally what I end up using re-unwrap for is when I've come in here and I've made some seams with Control E menu, Control E, edges, mark seam, perfect. And then, but I want to re-unwrap it. And I haven't been live unwrapping. What do I do? Re-unwrap. Boom. That looks gross. Why? I don't know why I did that. That is funny. If I go in here and I do unwrap here, huh? Don't know what's going on with that. Let's redo UVerts. There we go. Sometimes this is very helpful. There's some tools out here that I'm not sure of, that I thought I've gotten some operators that break it. I'm adding the list for the auto UVert update, but if you can help me, if you find one that you see that seems to break it most often, that's it's not catching, and you have to redo UVerts a whole bunch on that operator, let me know and I will add it to it and send out a patch. Oh, hit it, undo that. All right, so that's re-unwrap. Randomize, that's just a simple randomization. Gross looking, right? And don't forget, when you randomize, you can tell it how much over here. So it's only a little bit. Hold on, let's re-unwrap that, right? Randomize. You can tell it it's only a little bit, not a whole lot, right? 0.01. Let's do 0.05, just enough. 0.03. There we go. So it slowly just kind of randomizes it. Well, it shifts things around just a little bit. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Add a little bit of roughness if you want, so for whatever reason. Easy. Spread. What does spread do? So what spread does is get my selection going on here. One thing about spread is that it won't, right now, the only way it works is having two selected. So you can have one selected and then it'll select whichever one's closest, like that. But if you have, let's say you selected one and you want to select more, it won't work, unfortunately. Not yet, at least. Working on it. Have some ideas, but haven't got it to work yet. So there we go. Line of UVs. And let's say you really want this to be perfectly square, but you still don't want to. You want it to still kind of line up with the mesh. What spread does is it will create a straight line from invert to, or end UV to end UV, and it will it will do it either evenly or based upon the mesh edge lengths. So you can press Alt T or come over here and press spread or Alt T. There you see that spread, and I'll move that up just a little bit. And you can see here the base one is going to be a cubic or edge length. You can also do linear, which will do equal lengths in between each UV. But I prefer to do cubic, and what this one does is it's based upon the edge lengths of the object. So this one is this one compared to this one, this edge compared to this edge will have the same ratio of distance between each UV as it does on the mesh. So easily make this into a square that way without compromising on your stretching. All right, do it like that. Go in here. Now I have set up the auto align tool. Transform. I don't even know where it is anymore. I know it's. Am I missing it? I'm sure you guys are like, idiot. Here we go. There it is. Auto align. So I have set that up. Excuse that noise. So you have auto align here, and I've set it as Alt Z. So what I'm doing is I'm doing Alt Z or auto align. Move that down a little bit, and then I'll spread it, and I just kind of easily make that into Alt Z, auto align, and Alt T to spread. There we go. And then you automatically have your square, and you can press V or Control V to minimize the stretch, or you can deselect all these and hit smooth. Whatever you want to do to make that inside. Oops, I forgot about that one. But easily enough. Come on. I know different UVs. There you go. Spread works again. Perfect. All right, so that's spread. Right. Okay, so let's look at now merge by distance. So let's say you have this here seam, and it's cut down the middle, and you say, you know what, I regret making that. I don't want to do that anymore. Again, you could always do E. I guess you'd have to do E like this. You could always do E like that, but you could also just kind of like, select the loop. Or some better way of doing that, probably using the shortest path. I use my own tools. And you press merge by distance. And what merge by distance does is it looks at all the selected UVs and finds the closest one and moves it. And you can also say this is your distance. So you could give it a wider range, and it would all go to 1. Or something. Basically, it's the remove doubles or merge by distance that you have now in edit mode. Yeah, so something like that, whatever. There. And then you clear your seam, and that also helps, so, if you don't want to Reunwrap or anything like that, you can do that. Okay, so let's talk about correct ratio. So we see you have a new playground, as how you call it. It's a new scene or a new object here we're dealing with. Not at all. These are all squares except for these circles here. And so what we have here is just a bunch of curved grids, effectively, right? Each one could be a square if it wanted to be. Each one is a quadrilateral, 4 corners, 4 points. And let's say, well, you want to straighten it all up because all your textures go straight up and down. Oh, let's redo UVerts there, fix that. I don't know what changed, but something changed. Still working through those bugs. So okay, so there you go. That's easy. Go to the next one. We're working on it. Oh, I'm trying to do this. That's what I'm trying to do. Spreading through all of these things. At some of these things though, you wonder, like, am I like, especially like something this big, or like this, right? This one down here is so small. This one up here is so big. When I do an auto align, it averages out in the middle. But is that messing with your stretching? Is that messing? There's no way that this is all gonna be 100% right. So what should a guy do, right? Or gal? So what we do is correct ratio. So let's say, so what you do is you try to find a good average X length of, you know, something along your X axis. You could do, usually I do the bottom one, but it doesn't really matter. All it's going to do is what you're telling it here is what line of vertices do you want it to measure to get the length going, the length for X, for this ratio. You come over here and click X length, and it auto populates this. You can actually set this if you want it to be a certain. If you want it to be a square, you could set 1 and 1, and it would automatically make this into a square. But I'll show that here in a second. So, and then let's say UI, same thing. All you're doing, this is just telling Blender what the Y length should be. So we can see that this one's definitely longer than this way, right? So you hit correct ratio, yet as long as one vertex UV is selected over here, and you can hit correct ratio. Perfect. Boom, just like that. And you can see it shortened it actually. See here, actually, before I do that one, you can see that it shortens it a bit to get it the accurate one. So now let's say if you wanted it to be a square, boom, square, just like that. You want this one to be perfectly square. It doesn't look like a perfect square, but you know, if you drew a box around this, it would be. Here, I can just do it like so. Spread those out after auto aligning. Remember, auto align is not mine. It is Blender's. There we go, and just boom, just like that. Or if you actually want it to be, there you go. Now you notice it is dependent upon. Remember how big. If you remember, it's smaller down here than up here, so that's going to change your ratio. So pay attention when you do these things about what you're wanting to do. I would recommend, especially for this one, doing something more in the middle. Spread wrong. There we go. So that's why I did something in the middle, because your X length all the way across is, at least for this one, is going to be the same. This one here, Y goes all the way from 0.38 in length to all the way to 0.9, almost 1.1 full Blender unit. So if I do it here, you know, it makes it more squat in the X direction. But if I do the Y here, it's going to make it a lot longer. So I would recommend doing it somewhere in the middle, and you're going to get a good average there. Or you can leave it as is, doesn't matter, whatever. That way, now we got this. That's correct ratio, and you can do that for anything. So it doesn't have to be square, right? So let's say you've accidentally messed with this or something like that, and you want it to go back to its original ratio. So you come along here. It's kind of hard to tell, but let's say that's roughly your X. This will be roughly your Y length. It's going to be a square, so we know that. And it doesn't matter, just one selected, and boom, I'll select. Now it will do your size. You may have to redo your sizing. So after you do all of your ratio correcting, oh, that's not right. I wanted to do it like that. It's gonna be a little bit different. Yeah, you can select everything, and I would do average island scale, Control A, and it brings everything kind of back up to where it was before you unwrapped. Right. All right. So now, last but not least, is Gratify Island. What Gratify Island does is it makes everything, instead of having to go through here and auto align and auto spreading, it will do all of this work for you. All right. Gratify Island. Boom. Just like that. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. It actually also automatically does the correct ratio. So as long as your mesh is perfectly a grid, it doesn't have any triangles in it, and it doesn't have any extra squares hanging off of it, Gratify Island will work. Well, that is intense, but that's why we do that. Where did this come from? That can't be right. Alright, so if you do have problems with it, what I would recommend, let's see if we can figure out, see if we can guess which one that is. I bet it's this one. Gratify Island. Nope, that one worked fine. Gratify Island. Okay, it's this one. But for some reason, this is very much still in beta. If this one is, as well as Circle, by the way. Circle and Gratify Island are still kind of in beta. They don't have to say beta on it because I didn't think that was important, but they're still working out kinks. And hopefully the next version it will be good. All right. This one though. So what happens when it works like that? Usually, if you turn it 90 degrees, it works. Now you say, Zach, that's ridiculously small. All right, well, that's fine. Just scale it up. Come on. Scaling it up slowly but surely. Alright, well, this one doesn't like it. This one does not work well. And so I guess this one you may have to come in here and redo it like such. I wonder. Now I build this. There we go. So you fix a couple things and it's fixed. Actually, I gratify it from here. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes you have to gratify it twice. You know, Reunwrap that. Let's try that again. Reunwrap. Sometimes it does. If you turn it if you turn 9 degrees, it works better. I don't know why. Sometimes it just does. Gratify Island. That didn't work out right. Gratify. Okay. So that still doesn't work right. So let's turn it sideways. Gratify Island, really small. Gratify Island again. Scale by a couple million. Wow, it does not like this. There we go. You gotta play with it a little bit, but it's still a lot faster than going like this and trying to, and like, okay, I got it, and then scale that up. Luckily, what spread, it's nice about spread is you see like the inverts. The end of this line is right here. What spread will do is it will bring everything in between those two ones. That's really nice. Oh, we gotta do this and spread it again, and spread, and spread, and spread, and spread, and spread, and spread, and so on and so forth. That's exhausting. That's long. Who wants to do it like that? This one, you gotta play with it a little bit, but oop, that's like the whole island there. But if you work with it just a little bit, there you go. You can get the results you want. Nice. Let's make sure, looked like that was constrained a little bit. There we go. Just like that. All right. Well, guys, I hope that's everything that you ever wanted in life. Actually, I hope not, because I'm going to keep working on everything. But I hope this was useful for you. I hope you learned something. I hope you, if anything wasn't easily explained, or you saw some hard time understanding, hit me in the link down below, or the comments down below, or find me on Blender Market or on Blender Artist. I have a page on there under ZUV Tools. You can find it pretty easily and just kind of post your thanks if you're really kind, or your problems, or whatever you have, what's going on with it. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.